Hi, I'm Maureen Carroll. Welcome to the 2023 Amity Literary Prize reading with our authors that are both the winner and the runners-up. We're really proud to have this prize and the incredible writing that we received. And this is the creme de the creme, really the cream of the crop. We've got such a fantastic array of authors. I'm really proud to present them to everyone. And we'll talk a little bit more about the press and about the award as we go. But I'll introduce each author one by one, and they'll give you a little bit of a taste of their authorship and the kind of writing you can expect from them. First, I'd like to introduce the assistant editor of Anam Press, and that is Amber Fraley. Hi, Amber.
Hi, everybody. So let's see. I got involved with Anam Press a few years ago because Anam Press was kind enough to publish one of my books. And so now I've been kind of consulting with Anam Press. Sometimes I set up readings and appointments for other authors. Sometimes I assist with editing. We put out a literary journal twice a year as well, called The Right Bridge, and I'm one of the editors on that. I am the essay editor for The Right Bridge, which means I get to choose what goes in and doesn't go in, but I also help with the general editing of the whole journal once we get it put together. Just trying to be an extra set of eyes to catch any typos, misspellings, grammatical errors, things like that. Yeah, and I'm also a writer, so I think I'm somewhat well attuned to what our other writers need sometimes from Anam Press, just because I have lived the frustrations and challenges myself of getting something published. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Is that good? Should I say anything else?
That's great, Amber. Do you want to tell
Okay.
a little bit about your journalism teaching and what you're doing in that sense?
Oh yeah. So this last spring was my first ever semester teaching a basic writing class at the University of Kansas. And it's actually a writing class for journalism and marketing majors. And I have qualifications to do that because I'm also a freelance journalist. I write a lot for some regional and local magazines like Kansas Magazine, Lawrence Magazine, Topeka Magazine. Um, so yeah, I had a great time this year just learning how to teach myself, learning to connect with the kids, trying to pound AP style book rules in their heads when they didn't want to learn them. Man, it was a lot of fun, just a great learning experience. And I have a lot of faith in our young people, because they seem to have a lot of drive and passion and interest in making things better. So it also pleases me that there are still kids out there who actually want to write. So yeah. What
Well,
else? Oh, I mean, I think that's about it. I think.
well, I am very grateful to have Amber Fraley on board with the press. And though they're not present tonight, we also have Kat Williams, who helps with art editing and other kinds of editing, and Rhonda Miller, who's also helps with the journal occasionally, and Vicki Julian, who helps with other larger manuscript editing things. So I'm really appreciative of the people that help with the press. And Anam Press started the the award, the Amity Literary Award in 2023. And it was, Anam Press is, it means soul friend in Irish Gaelic. And so that's where the name Amity comes from. It comes from this concept that writers become our friends. And everybody I'm sure everybody I know has read some book, and there's been some line in that book that stuck with them and became an important part of their life going forward. Is that true for any of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, those words sometimes actually help us move forward. The words can be, really a literal bridge, like that's why we named it the Right Bridge. But they can also connect us. And in my mind, they connect us with that writer. So the reader and the writer are connected in this kind of soul friend way, because even if you never meet that writer, those words become crucially important to people in their lives. So the Amity Prize is in celebration of the importance of words in our lives. And I'm really pleased about our first award in 2023, because as I said, the writers are really the cream of the crop. And I'd like to introduce our first writer, the Amity Prize winner, Chad V. BROUGHMAN. Chad was the recipient of the Rusty Skiff Prize Book Award and the Adobe Cottage Writers Retreat Honor in New Mexico. And he was also awarded 2 chapbook contracts for his short story collections, The Total Forsaken and Slighted, both published by Etching Press. His fiction can be found in journals worldwide, such as Carrier Pigeon, East Coast Literary Review, River Poets Journal, Burning Wood, Pulp Fiction, Sky Island Journal, and From Whispers to Roars. Additionally, he anthologized in Wright, Michigan Short Story Anthology, On Loss and Scribes Valley Anthology. Chad is a Best of the Net and Pushcart Prize nominee as well, and holds an MFA from Spalding University. He teaches English and creative writing at the secondary, post-secondary levels, but is most proud of his roles as husband and father to 2 rambunctious young sons. So I would like to welcome and let you read some of the wonderful work from Chad V. BROUGHMAN. Welcome, Chad.
Thanks. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, you might turn up just a little.
We have the case of the missing hamster in our house right now, so I'm waiting for it to run across my feet. So I'm trying to play it cool, but I'm watching our cat really close. Should I say I have a little bio here? I just by trade, I'm actually a 25-year veteran of the public school system. I teach British literature, American literature, and I'm an adjunct professor from our community college here too. I used to be a banker actually before I became a teacher, but I switched careers. I just decided I'd rather be a proponent for our nation's youth and work on that end of things. Yeah, so the bottom line, who am I? I'm an author and I'm a teacher, but like Maureen said, most importantly, I'm a family man. Should I dive in and do my reading for the book? Okay. I picked a chapter here, chapter 29. It's actually entitled Teeth. It's actually been published as a standalone piece too, but it became its own chapter in the book. Just a really quick context. It's about one of the main characters named Basil. And Basil has proven himself to be quite a coward. He actually, a couple chapters before this, watched his wife die and couldn't save her. And he's the town teacher, but he's kind of a fake. And in this scene, he's actually pulling out his teeth because he's trying to avoid being drafted into the Civil War. So, trigger warning, it's a little brutal. Basil stuffed the pliers deep into his mouth. trying to clasp them down on the backmost molar. But the handles were too wide for his jaw, stretching and thinning his lips. Then the hard, rigid metal glanced a front tooth, and Basil winced, let out a low grunt. With the pliers resting against his tongue, he paused, looked out the window of the loft. Hundreds of winking stars dotted the sky. The expanse made him feel less alone, connected him to the other deserters, hiding in thickets or cellars or ice houses, pondering ways to mutilate themselves too, all of them desperate to sidestep Mr. Lincoln's God-forsaken war. When the vice finally gripped, he clamped down fast. It was a low click, bone on metal, but he couldn't pull, not yet. Work through the pain, boy, his pa once said. That's how true men are made. And then his mind slipped back to his boyhood, the day he walked into the barn as the cow was being prepped for butcher. Grandpa was hooking the steel gambrel into the severed tendons of its hind legs, while Pa had begun to crank the winch, the hulking carcass raising up like a great spirit. The veins along its neck had been opened and blood soaked the straw beneath, staining it a rich purple. The salty smell flooded his nostrils, and he stared at the thick matted coat, the hemorrhaging frame, its severed head atop a hay bale, sitting upright, as normal as could be, as if cows were simply made that way. Then he met the dead eyes, big and blank and wet, and his heart thrashed against his 8-year-old chest, and he dizzied, empty his stomach on the ground. Pa stared him down and shook his head, making several tisk sounds with his tongue before turning away. And that same floating feeling was upon him now. Teetering on a tightrope, nothing but air, he felt like an unimaginable coward with a pair of rusty pliers in his fist. Basil pushed his back against the wood planks, dug his feet into the floor. Now, do it now, you daisy. And he squeezed his fingers around the handles, his whole body clenched. Then he held steady, drank in the details of his backdrop, the stage he'd still be sitting on after wrenching out his teeth. Not as a man, but an even bigger mouse than his wife knew, an unpatriotic yellow belly. To the left was the open space where Stella had tumbled to her death the year before, and the shame was a wildfire. Perched on a nearby rafter, an owl stared at him with big glassy eyes, then turned its ring-shaped head away. Basil glanced at the hoe resting against the wall behind him, remembering hearing about a father over in Escanaba who had lanced his own man parts with the middle tine of a pitchfork, trying to keep from dying in a war that folks in the Upper Peninsula knew little about. And he wondered what that man thought about in the seconds before bringing down the sharp point through his family jewels. Did he think of the warmth of his wife's body, pushed against him on a frigid February morning? The wind hollering outside, slapping at the window pane? Or did he see his little boys, their arms slung over one another's shoulders, the sun's rays slanted across their silhouettes, lighting them up as if God himself was wheeling a lantern behind them? Enough, Basil said out loud, and then he sucked in hard, held it, and yanked out the first tooth. He dropped his head and he wept, for pain, for truth, and for his wife, his dead, pretty wife. And then he managed to pluck out 2 more teeth before fainting. And the last sound he heard was the owl squealing, human-like and shrill. And when he woke, Basil found himself coiled on the barn floor, the space drenched in the faint blue of night. There was a violent ache in his face that made his whole upper half undulate, like Lake Superior tidal flow, bulging, then shrinking his eyes as the riptide took hold. His jaw had ballooned, the bottom half of his face rounding out his chin. With a thumb and 2 forefingers, he tried to stroke his jowls, but flinched. And then he gently slid his tongue over the curious new gaps, and a loose clot broke open, and the taste flooded his mouth. like pennies, plums, and salt. And he glanced at the three shiny molars gathered at his side like tiny white stalactites. Basil knew he wouldn't be able to chew for a while, no meat or hardtack, or anything for that matter. And he knew his speech might be impeded some, but he was more concerned about the accusing looks and muffled whispers, the ones that would happen behind fanned out fingers and roving eyes, like, why ain't he off fighting? They'd ask one another. And then with great curiosity and anticipation, they'd guess at the invisible affliction that was granting the town teacher an exemption. I bet it's his peace slinger. Don't work like it's supposed to. They never did have no kids, did they? It was in the early hours on a Saturday that Basil had extracted several of his back teeth, and by Sunday morning he still couldn't talk without forming the words from the front of his mouth, slow and rigid. And when the throbbing flared inside the dried sockets, he thought of calling off school for the first time ever. Instead, he called himself a milksop, and with his balled up knuckles, he struck the sorest part of his cheek again and again, and he rolled over and lay still, too weary to stand. He looked up at the ceiling and counted the rafters, 8 in all, and recalled hauling them up one by one, and how that night Stella rubbed her soft palms against his spine until the ache subsided, and he asked God to let him go back to that day, to let him live out an eternity with his wife's hands on his body, smoothing out the pain, not thinking about a filthy war, and still hopeful for children and all of his teeth still in his mouth. Thank you.
Thank you for reading. I have one question I'm going to ask all of our authors. And Chad, I'm going to ask you right now, what's your inspiration, especially for a story so powerful?
I can answer that without hesitation. I had a little thing I was going to say tonight if we had time. It started out for me just wanting to get a story out that was in my head and heart. These characters have been in my soul for 12 years. But my inspiration has flipped. It's all about my boys now. I want them to see their dad achieving his dreams and working in the mornings before work, and seeing what that looks like for someone to have a dream and make it happen. So my inspiration is my boys.
I love that. Sorry, I was muted. So I'm going to introduce our next author. Thaddeus Dugan's poetry collection is called A Record of Change. And this was an Amity Prize finalist in 2023. Thaddeus resides in Topeka. He studies English and writing at Washburn University. He has 2 cats, one named Araya and the other Elliot, who supervise all of his writing endeavors. In his spare time, he likes to read, write, and observe all the conditions of the human experience. And you can find him on Facebook. And all of our authors, I'll put their contact information down below, so you can feel free to get in touch with our authors if you'd like through Facebook. So Thad, would you like to read for us, please?
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead and turn it up a little bit if you can.
All right, just a minute here. All right. Better? Is that better?
That's great.
All right. Well, I'm right in the middle of finals, so I'm a little bit crazy, but we'll give it a go here. I just wrote so much and read so much this semester. I have no idea what's really going on, honestly. But anyways, I got 3 poems I'll read, and we'll go from there. This is called The Clearing. Tell me it will be okay, that these bodies are only a temporary reprieve, a stay from the swirling. Till we go back to where we came, take another shape, witness the next set of stars from a distance so far we cannot fathom. I give my 2 weeks notice, and it's like dragging the lake for dead bodies to finish, so I can let little parts myself out into the atmosphere where they'll choke on air and find their meaning. I assume at the appendix the storylines will be fitting, and I believe there's a clearing where the cottonwood seeds drift edgewise, like awe at the first inset of snow, where my voice will not go unheard. The words, a mosaic painted in flesh-covered life with a sliver of defiance, which delves into the inner workings of the soul to see what makes the heart sing, and at the crescendo used to ignite or divide us. Thank you. All right, so I got another one here, and I'll read it, and then I'll go on to my last one, and then we'll, yes. It's called "The World Has Lost Its Color." Days flash in the mirror. The same day there now disappears somehow into the now. An imposing dark mass accumulates in the west. Droplets thud next to my footsteps, leave dimples in the dirt. Breeze breaks into the wind. The sopping violence slaps against my skin until the silence drips on occasion. A rain gauge brims from the passing storm, and so it warns of the peril from further downpours if I continue to neglect the excess. So I dump the contents, and as the minutes fill in with emptiness, I can't stand that even more. All right, I have one more. I just wrote this the other day. I don't know. The other day it could be like any time within the last 6 months for me, you know. I mean, literally. Okay, this is called Fragments. In the glare of a TV in the corner, his face comes to in the stare. He broods. I ruin everything I touch, right down to the hub. It sputters into dusk. Shades of pink gloss the clouds. The porcelain image of his future cracks. And there he is, naked in that sound. Thanks.
Thank you, Thad. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I have a question. When did you start writing poetry, Thad?
Like I mean, I've written throughout like my life, but basically just the last 3 years. I just basically started the last 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your inspiration?
I mean, it's a lot like Chad's, just trying to follow my dreams. I was living a mundane existence, and it's like, what are you willing to do? Go to work 40 hours a week, or go to college and write like your life depends on it and make it happen. You know, you only got one shot at this life. You got to make it count.
Beautiful, beautifully put. And we very much enjoy what you had to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now I'll introduce our next author. And our next author, Beth Gully, is a Kansas City-based poet who has published 2 chapbooks and 3 full-length collections of poetry. Since Corona ruined our trip to the library, excuse me, I said that in the wrong way. Since Corona ruined our trip to the library by Finishing Line Press, Little Fish, Tiny Meditations on Freedom by Flying Ketchup Press, Dragon Eggs by Spartan Press, The Sticky Note Alphabet, Alien Buddha Press, and Love of Ornamental Fish, Alien Buddha. She teaches English at Johnson County Community College. Beth serves on the Riverfront Reading Community and the Writers Place board. She likes to volunteer, trail run, and drink coffee. And you can find more information about her on her blog at timeseaseallthings at wordpress.com. And I'll get I'll put people's contact information below so that you can contact people if you'd like. And Beth's latest book, Frog Joy, is of course one of the finalists in the Amity Literary Prize 2023 award. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Can you
Sorry,
hear
Beth.
me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. I'm very excited because my book is so beautiful. So I'm going to read 4 poems because one of them's kind of short, if that's okay. This is called There Will Be Silence While You Wait. There will be silence while you wait. Don't fill it with anxious, empty thoughts. Not every day flows with important information. Some days just are. When you looked again, a water-stained slice of moon peers behind a cloud. A hailstorm startles drivers. God, it seems, wants them to turn and go home. One more set to win all the marbles. Don't walk out before it's finished. This is called While on a Tour of the Church That Houses Pizarro's Bones. Pelicans, she explains in very clear Spanish, symbolize Christ because they peck their chest until they bleed to feed their young when other food cannot be found. Then she leads us beneath the altar to see the bones of children blessed to rest so near to God. My mothering heart wanted to cover the tomb with stones. Take them out of public view. The heart of God is like a hen with her chicks. He shelters us under his wings. He doesn't charge admission to show our suffering to the angels. And this is called I Want Summer, which I feel like is right on track with where I feel right now. I want summer cicada sounds. I want sweaty feet and itchy legs. I want hot sand and cold lake water. I want light to last late into the evening. I want freezy pops and fresh tomatoes. I want dollar drinks at Quick Trip. I want early morning dew smell and a soft pink sunrise. But more than anything, I want to be 5 again, climbing in the Ozarks with my dad until my legs get tired, and he lifts me on his shoulders and carries me. And then last one, this is called Amanda Haiku Nunes. And this is because I write short poems and I get a lot of slack about it. So this is my response to people who critique me for writing too many short poems. So Amanda Nunes really is an MMA fighter. She retired recently. And haiku is the moniker I gave her myself. It's not hers. The fighter doesn't dance around. She goes straight for the takedown. The flight is done 48 seconds into round 1. Viewers are left thinking, I paid for this, and I need to see this fight a few hundred more times. Announcers are left speechless and unprepared. It's like reading Basho for the first time. Thank you.
I love that. I hope everybody's read Basho too. Beth, can I ask you also, what is your inspiration?
So just recently, especially for that book, Frog Joy, I had been leading writing retreats in the Paola Community Garden. And so I'd been spending a lot of time in a very messy, it's when you think community garden, it was not being really well cared for. So it was just like this chaotic mess with birds and like wild strawberries and things. And other people who were just going and sitting quietly and writing, and it was just kind of mesmerizing. So that was my biggest inspiration. And also I've been holding on to these lines from a Mary Oliver poem that I kind of read when I was in the garden, where she talks about my work is loving the world. And at some point in the middle of the poem, she says, and I'm concentrating on my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. So I'm working on doing that. I'm not doing it so well, but if I could just for a moment do that, that would make me really happy. So.
Well, I think you've made me and us stand still and be astonished, even if just for a moment. Yes, thank you so much. And our next reader, our next author is Deborah Ersick. D.A. Ersick is a Kansas girl and shares her life with her husband, Mike, and children, John and Emily. Deb is a member of the Kansas Authors Club and the Emporia Writing Group. Her Heroes by Design, her book. I have a problem with my voice when I get to this part. Sorry, her Heroes by Design YA fiction series was completed in 2020, and she is dedicating her time to creating a book of poetry and writing essays, prose, and fiction. Deb has also published works in 105 Meadowlark Reader and The Right Bridge. She's an Amity Literary Prize finalist here in 2023, and so she's going to read from her Amity Prize book, her collection. Is that right, Deb? You're going to read from your collection?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can. You might turn up just a little bit if you can.
Now, is that better? Maybe I didn't go up. Oh, there it is. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm really excited because Mickey and I just really finished going through the last of mine today. Hallelujah. And I love my cover. We worked really hard to get there, but with Mickey's help, it all came together and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I kind of channel, like you, Beth. I love those nature poems, and that's when Rhonda edited my poetry book manuscript, and she said, your sweet spot is nature. And I said, well, that's good, because that is what comes easiest to me. But my poetry book is divided into sections, and I'm going to try to read a poem from 3 of those sections. Forever a memory, graduation, an ending, a beginning, new experiences, friendships loom. Better put my glasses on. Relationships forged for 12 years, soon connected by a thread. Life is a collage of collected moments, friendships that weather distance and time should be treasured. But we didn't know those early friendships would set a precedent for future relationships. Some recognized as shallow and self-serving, some worthy of more than we gave. We hear the warning, in your lifetime, you will have 1 or 2 genuine friends. We don't grasp its meaning until we live life. It's that connection with the friend that you might see every few years and pick up right where you left off, sharing secrets, joys, sorrows, disappointments, and love, accomplishments and victories, knowing only they would understand. I wish I had nurtured that friendship, held it in higher esteem. I should have been more present in her life, celebrating her moments before she became forever a memory. And in my book, I have some prose kind of at the beginning of some of the chapters that I just threw in because they were things that I wrote in a journal that encouraged me to write the poetry. So this is an excerpt from life. I remember listening to the rain as a child and thinking that it was God's tears. I pictured this gentle, white-bearded man crying because the people he loved so dearly were so mixed up and sinful. Not wanting to contribute to God's sadness, I made up my mind to always be good. I would be the one that did not distress God. Soon I learned that we all sin, and no matter how hard we try, we still sometimes screw up. I also learned that God still loved me. I have been angry and disappointed in something my children have done, but no matter what, I still love them. We cannot understand the love that He has for us. We are taught that His love is so much bigger. It is beyond comprehension. I admit doubt creeps in when life gets hard. Annie's birthmarks, John's disability, family and relationships all caused me to question. Annie's death caused me to doubt my faith and the very existence of God. Those were the darkest days of my life. I have decided life happens, and it is how we choose to deal with it that makes God an integral part of it. Sometimes we make choices that ease our burdens in life, and sometimes we add to those burdens. We have to ask God to forgive us and help us bear the consequences of those decisions. I do not believe we are all created equal. Some have a lot more going from the beginning. I do believe that each of us has something to contribute to the world around us, whether or not we are in ideal circumstances. Usually those who have to go the farthest distance are the best kind of people. I wish those with disadvantages could know that their contributions are just as important as anyone else's. God sees us. He knows our hearts. He has created a place for us. And the next one is my attempt at a formal poem. It's a sestina. Most of my poetry is not put together like that. And so this is about my youngest daughter. Wasn't it yesterday she was a child running around, jumping, laughing? Somehow time has stolen life. Time has fast forwarded to grow this child into the person standing before me that I love. There is no greater love than my aching for this child. I recognize me in this person. I can't help laughing. Laughing. I watched you grow, forgetting tricks of life. I am in awe of life, captivated by total love. I do not regret that I let you grow, only that I miss the child. The timbre of her laughing has changed. I see this person. I see a woman in this person with a vision of life, and I am laughing at myself, for I still love this woman, my child, that time let grow into a beautiful person with the heart of a child. And then the last one, I marked several pages, so I have to decide which one I really want to. I don't want to do that one. I don't want to do that one either. Oh, this one's kind of fun. My daughter and I have gone on several girl vacations, and we went to South Carolina beaches one summer. So this came from that. Dream of beaches, hot, cloudless days, warm nights, shifting glances, observing cultures other than ours with bright summer colors. Umbrella drinks abound, billowing fabrics for tropical climes, markets crowded with tourist items to take a little beach back home. The sand is warm, sugary soft, sticks to your feet. Little fish chase your bright suit, nibbling and darting. Fish and sea life flourish in the transparent crystalline sea, swimming in schools, synchronized ballets like birds in a flock. The evening cools. The ferry floats on a sheet of foaming glass. sun sits on the water, a reflection of fire rippling like a mirage in your dream of beaches. And actually that was from Cancun, not from South Carolina. There's no sea in South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
So can I also ask you, Deb, what's your inspiration for your poetry?
Well, I had such a collection of notebooks. I started writing what I thought were lyrics when I was, 12, I think. So I started writing rhyming and poetry that I thought was lyrics at the time, because I thought I was going to be a great singer or whatever. And so then as I got older, I realized that a lot of times I wrote the poem that was on the front of our wedding announcements. I was always writing poetry for something. And so I had this big collection of poetry. And I had finished those three. No, I never thought I would write fiction. But after I wrote those three books, I decided before I did anything else, I was going to put together a collection of poetry. And now I've written a lot more, so maybe I'll do another one eventually. So I think poetry has just always been something that when I was a kid and we had to do it, I thought it was horrible. And of course it had to have, meter and rhyme, and we still need all of that. But now I understand it better, and but I feel like my poetry is for the people. You see what you get, and it's not always pretty. And I think that just the regular guy can appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that too, that it's so accessible. Thanks very much, Deb. And
Thank
I'd like
you.
to also, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce our final poet, and that's J.A. McGovern. Joseph McGovern is a published poet, songwriter, and independent filmmaker, a graduate with a bachelor's degree in forensic science, chemistry focused with criminal justice minor. J.A. McGovern currently works as an analytical inorganic chemist, founder and curator of the literary art anthology Perception. His artistic team has received multiple nominations and awards for their work. In 2018, J.A. McGovern received an American Songwriting Award for lyrics in folk music for his independent film's title song, All Over Again. Words Left Unspoken is J.A. McGovern's debut poetry collection publication. And that is the winner of, a finalist for the Autumn Car Press Amity Award. So welcome, Joseph, and we're happy to hear you read.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Fantastic. And I love the book. It looks so beautiful. Mickey, you and your team did a wonderful job. I love it. So the first poem I wanted to read is Arizona Dream. Thieves of Arizona drive fast cars through the desert, tobacco puffing in dry air. With the heat of a daily chase on their tail, these greedy sex fiends crave in a day, singing carols on the open road of their bloody tales, chanting, guns blazing, tires screaming, and women squealing, driving through the open plain. Thank you. The next one I think I will read is Potato Soup. Yesterday evening, I sat at the dining room table, sipping my fresh warm potato soup. It was late in the month of October, and the winter chill was drawing near. Just as half my soup was gone, I heard a calling at my door. I looked down at my watch and noticed it was 9:30, wondering who could be waiting upon this hour. So I approached and opened the door to find the winter breeze entering my house. The dreadful wind brought a silence of winter's chill through my home, and it took a seat in the living room, putting out a burning fire. I pleaded with the wind. Please leave. The wind responded, winter is here. I believe I will stay. Again, I pleaded with the wind. 'Tis not yet winter. Fall is still a week before end. The wind abruptly encircled me, with its chill piercing my skin like 1,000 sharp pin needles slicing through my wool knitted sweater. The wind spoke to its breeze, freeze this house, setting the entire house a dreary damp, every candle flame extinguished in a second. In that moment, I realized winter was early this year, so I walked back to my dining room seat with a blanket covering to keep warm. I pardoned the wind. Would you care to join me for potato soup? The wind swiftly declined and blew out the front door, leaving it creaking slowly back and forth. Then I lifted my spoon from the choppy soup and enjoyed the bitter taste of cold potatoes. And for the third one, so this book is 2 parts. It's traditional verse, free verse, prose for the first half, and then the second half is a line of Japanese style poetry, where it's haiku, senryu, and tanka. And I've been receiving a lot of really positive feedback in this second part. It seems like everybody really enjoys this piece called Baby Sparrows. So I figure I'll read that one next. Baby sparrows rest in nest, patiently waiting the day they learn flight. Mother protects as feathers grow plump, wing movement forms in balance. Sunday, shine, mother kicks out, now fly. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph. Wonderful. Can I ask what is your inspiration in writing your poetry? And also, because you're a songwriter, how does your inspiration for writing your poetry differ from your inspiration for writing songs?
So I kind of always well, first off, I started writing poetry when my cousin passed away when I was a sophomore in college. So I was going through a really difficult time, and the only outlet that I could really figure out that could help me, aside from therapy and things of that nature, because we were close, as was poetry. And it was the only way I could really get my thoughts on journaling. I did journal and write small little tidbits, but nothing really spectacular in high school. It was mainly my CD players getting taken away from my teachers because they didn't like that I was listening to music while I was supposed to be learning. So anyway, as far as the poetry started, and it just blossomed in college when I left King's College and I transferred to Chestnut Hill. And in the introduction, my buddy Alex, he was actually the one running the poetry club at Chestnut Hill College. And then him and I got together and I joined the poetry club. And from that, I really started growing with poetry, learning more about, traditional verse, and then just expanding my horizons with that, learning different writers, and then just like self-learning and things of that nature. But when it came to the song lyrics, I transitioned to song lyric writing when it just made sense. As far as, song lyrics, I feel like the best songs are usually based from poetry. And when I started watching a lot of interviews with really good musicians, Eric Clapton to even Garth Brooks, trying to name a whole bunch of different people in different genres, it all came circling back when I started listening to similar poets that they read and learned a certain style from. And for example, Jack Kerouac was a huge one, and I'm a lover of Jack Kerouac too. When you said earlier in the Zoom meeting, certain lines stick with you. Well, as kind of like Kerouac cliche as this may sound, the final ending lines still bring me to tears of on the road, where he says in Dean Mortuary, and closes out the book. But I started writing song lyrics and giving it out to all my friends to read and give me feedback, especially my poetry friends. And it just kind of grew. I started writing for some musicians, and my buddy Joe Fuco and I started writing a lot of songs, and he was the lead in my film All Over Again. So I really write more for him than anybody else, because people wouldn't produce the music. It would just kind of stay stagnant. And I kind of learned that throughout sending lyrics out to different people. So I really just write mainly for him and then for myself. But yeah, I have a whole lot, a whole pile of song lyrics. But the poetry is a little bit easier to get out than song lyrics. So yeah.
Well, we're excited that there's a couple of you that do both songwriting and poetry writing. That's very cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, definitely.
And I have one more sort of request, and you can say no if you're not comfortable with this, but Joseph, you and Beth both write haiku. And I'm wondering if you would each read one haiku for us. Beth, would you
Sure.
be willing to play?
Yeah, give me a second to organize. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So maybe
Joseph, you do
Joe
it.
could go. Joe could go first.
Joe, do you want to read first?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry
So
to put you on the spot.
it's all good. So Baby Sparrows was actually tanka. So in Japanese, it's basically a song version of poetry. So one of the haikus that I've been reading positive feedback from. Hang on one second. All right, I like this one. I think a lot of people have basically been enjoying this. This one's called Prejudice. Prejudiced souls, grant me words to hear your argument and learn, to help you understand lost clarity. Thank you.
Love it. Love it.
Appreciate it.
Do you need another minute, Beth?
I think I've got one.
Okay, excellent.
Trees cast long shadows, like students sleeping in the quad. Sunshine at last.
Love it.
Especially now, somehow that's really pertinent today, this week, and last. So I really want to thank all of you. One of the things that inspires me as a publisher is the incredible authorship, and it is the exemplary authorship that comes from the winners of the Amity Prize. It's just a turn on, and I'm excited to share your authorship with others out there. Our winner for 2024 is Julie Baker Bryn, and the runner-up, the finalist, is Carrie Alt. So we'll be sharing information about their authorship in the next few months as we go along. So I hope that everybody will take a look at the wonderful books, book covers, poetry books, and fiction books we have from fiction book we have from Chad V. Broughtman. And I'm going to share my screen for a minute so you can take a look at these books and see how beautiful they are. Both Chad Broughtman's The Fall of Bellwether, Thaddeus Dugan, A Record of Change, Beth Gully's Frog Joy, Deborah Ersich's Sunshine in the Weeds, and J.A. McGovern's Words Left Unspoken. So does anyone have any final words they'd like to share before we go?
It was a great pleasure getting to read with everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great to be here.
Thank you all for being here. Thanks for joining us tonight. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Mickey.